Uh, do we have the? Yeah, let's put up one of these full screens of Sexy Red and the MLK photos. Let's put up one of these first. Just start. I think she posted that, and then there is a second one that she posted, and then I think Bernice King, one of Martin Luther King's daughters, complained. Let's read this tweet. This is intentionally distasteful, dishonoring, deplorable, and disrespectful to my family and my father, who is not here to respond himself because he was assassinated for working for your civil and human rights and to end war and poverty. Please delete. Delano then jumps in to the fray and says, is anyone surprised that a woman who raps about the color of her private parts shows such little regard for her elders or history? This is what happens when cultural gatekeepers police political thought and defend degeneracy. The people pushing filth have no regard for anything but money. Sexy Red deleted her tweet and published an apology directly, I think, to Bernice King. You ain't wrong. Never meant to disrespect your family. My apologies. Just responded to something I saw that I thought was innocent. Delano, I watched all this. I saw your response, saw what happened there, and my initial thoughts, my gut thought was just like, man, look what these male rappers have done. And I'm not surprised that Sexy Red is going for attention by any means necessary, because that's the example male rappers have set. And so anything that I don't like, and I don't like Sexy Red, I know it's a direct reflection of me and the tone that we as men and the celebration, the respect we've reserved for male rappers who do far worse or just as worse and dishonor any and everything. I'm not surprised at all Sexy Red's doing this. She's like, man, Snoop Dogg is performing at the inauguration. Snoop Dogg is the Super Bowl halftime show. Snoop Dogg is hosting NFL awards. Man, disrespecting and dishonoring everything must be the path to fame and fortune and respect. There's no place where Snoop Dogg's not respected, so why wouldn't Sexy Red join in on the fun? Your thoughts?
I mean, you're 100% right, Jason. And this is why oftentimes the pushback on artists like Sexy Red and Sukihana and Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B is just a continuation of the gender wars that are sort of raging in the culture. But my thing is not, the women are bad for doing it, but give a pass to the guys. To your point, what we're seeing now from Sexy Red could have been addressed 35 plus years ago, when the elders at the time, the C. Dolores Tuckers and the Calvin Butts, got together and said, this hip hop, this gangster rap stuff is poison. It's cultural poison. And I'm speaking for C. Dolores Tucker. She said, I didn't march and do all this stuff in the civil rights movement to fight for the rights of Black folk, to turn around and then hand over the culture to this type of degeneracy. And she was ridiculed. She was ridiculed by the young artists. She was ridiculed by the professors at the time who will write a think piece to explain away everything that these guys were doing. And now at least one generation later, right, 30 plus years later, we're having to deal with this. So the chickens have come home to roost. They're on steroids. They're like turduckens, what John Madden talk about on Thanksgiving. They got, they're pumped up on steroids. And these are the types of eggs that they lay. And that's why, yes, I have a certain, revulsion when I see Sexy Red. But to your point, I understand where she comes from. And part of why this thing has gone as far as it has gone is not just the artists. It's also the abdication of responsibility from the elders in the community. Because a nation is under judgment when it's ruled by its women and its children. And the fact that nobody, not Mark Lamont Hill, not Melissa Harris Perry, not Michael Eric Dyson, none of the cultural gatekeepers in the Black community will stand up to Sexy Red and say, you are promoting filth and degeneracy, and we don't want that in our neighborhoods. The only time, to your point, Jason, that they stand up and say a crossword to any artist is when the artist expresses political opinions that fall right of Barack Obama circa 2008. right? And even Bernice King, you didn't read this, but I saw this morning. She sent out a tweet in response to this whole issue and said, I'm not saying that Sexyy Red promotes degeneracy, and I like the young lady. And I said, well, not don't come looking for us next time, right? This is what you get. If you can't even say, Bernice King is low end, mid 50s, early 60s. If you can't even say that this girl, basically, this young woman who constantly talks about the color of her private parts and twerks anywhere on demand, if you can't say that that's degenerate behavior, then there's nothing that I can do, because we live in a society where people are ashamed of nothing and offended by everything. And you saw a microcosm of that with this whole affair with Sexyy Red and Bernice King.
This won't be understood, but it's factual. As Black men in general, we have to lower our expectations for women and elevate our expectations for ourselves. That's the only way this gets cleaned up. And so Sexyy Red, as you said, or I'm gonna put a little different spin on it, is like, here's Martin Luther King, who by most objective standards and certainly commonly accepted narrative, sacrificed his life for the freedoms and opportunities that Sexyy Red, Delano Squires, Jason Whitlock get to enjoy. And she has so little regard for that she would turn around and dump on that, mock that, use it as a gag, a gimmick. And we can get upset and say that, but Black men, we get the behavior and the treatment that we allow and have tolerated and promoted. And we've gone into this hyper worship of matriarchal leadership, hyper worship of women, hyper worship of even mama, and all of this is unbiblical. And then we wonder why a group of people that we spend all of our time worshiping reward us with behavior that shows no respect and doesn't advance us. They've lost respect for us. They don't. Sexyy Red is basically, I don't respect Black men. I'm gonna show you how little respect I have for Black men. I will mock one of the most legendary Black men in the history of America, Martin Luther King. And my argument is she shouldn't have any respect for us as men, because we don't demand respect. We tolerate anything and we worship them, and they know it in their nature. Like, man, y'all shouldn't be worshiping us. And I can't, I'm not gonna call this woman's name, and I'm not gonna go full off into detail, but I can remember, I'd say it was about 25 years ago. And this is a woman, I'm telling you, I should have married. But I didn't understand this at the time. I can remember she chastised me for putting her on a pedestal. Why are you putting me on a pedestal? You shouldn't put me on a pedestal, blah, blah. I didn't understand it at the time. And when I look back at it, I'm like, holy cow, she had it figured out. And she's like, hey man, quit telling me how great I am, blah, blah, blah. And she was into me, but she was like, that ain't how I want to be treated. And anyway, we have worshiped the wrong group, and they don't have any respect for us. That's what I think the messaging is. And I don't blame her for not having any respect for us, because we're way out of line. Like what you saw? Hit that like button, subscribe, and check out the full episode by clicking the link below.